A lot of people believe that gone are the days where you could make 100%, 200%, 300%, or even 400% return on Bitcoin. I mean, right now the asset is trading at 100,000 plus, right? So for you to just make 100% return, you need the price to go all the way up to 200,000. Well, that's not entirely true because I'm going to show you a strategy that I've been using that has enabled me to generate over 100% return on Bitcoin in a relatively short period of time in the stock market. So I want to walk you through the steps of how to do this. And this is all tied to Bitcoin, but you're going to have to do something a little bit different. So I'm just going to walk you through the entire strategy on how to do that. So if you want to learn how you can make massive returns off Bitcoin, this is the video. Let's dive in. If you pay attention to this, right, you can see that Bitcoin had a bullish run, right? And it was also mainly triggered with the Trump election, right? And it came and it set this high at 108. It retraced a little bit and then went back up to that high, right? So now I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I'm never a person who wants to buy high, right? You want to buy low and sell high. So with that being the case, what I did is I came to my nice little tool here and I looked at a level that I would be interested in buying Bitcoin. So unless if the asset was around here, I wouldn't be interested in entering Bitcoin. All right. So that was the overall strategy that I deployed is once we hit this high around, January after inauguration, I was like, if Bitcoin is to drop down into these levels, then I will look to enter long. So that's part one of the strategies, identifying the right time for you to enter the asset. Now, the second step of this strategy is not to actually trade Bitcoin, but instead you want to be trading Bitcoin ETFs. So I'm going to walk you through some of the Bitcoin ETFs that are out there on the market, and we'll take a trade on one of them, and then you'll see what would have happened had you taken a trade of Bitcoin on one of these assets. The SEC approved Bitcoin ETFs, and these kind of like ripped off, right? You can see Bitcoin ETFs surpass 90 billion in total assets. iShares Bitcoin ETF is now bigger than the gold counterpart. So there was a lot of buzz when these ETFs came out. And there are a lot of advantages to Bitcoin ETFs. Now, with Bitcoin ETFs, they're easy to access. You can just access them through your brokerage account. You don't need to have crypto wallets and all that stuff. But they're also regulated by the financial authorities, which also means that you can invest in Bitcoin ETFs in your 401ks. So that was kind of like the big play here. Now, here's a list, and I'll just move myself over here to the top, of some of the top Bitcoin ETFs that are out there. IBIT is quite big, and you have the Franklin Templeton and all that stuff. So if you actually want this entire list, there's a link in the description where you can actually just go and grab it. So you can get this information. And even more, I even have another PDF that explains everything, and I'll show you the PDF in a minute. But if you want all these resources, instead of you taking a screenshot or whatever, just click the link in the bio and you'll be able to get all those resources. Anyway, I actually wrote an ebook that also guides you through the crypto ETF. So as you can see, crypto ETFs explained. So in here, I talk about what they are, and I even have a list of all the Bitcoin ETFs, and I also have a list of all the Ethereum ETFs if you're interested in Ethereum. And this data is actually quite accurate. It's as accurate as June 1st, and it's about 2 weeks old, so quite really fresh, and it talks about how to invest. So definitely go and grab this if you're really interested. Now, let me walk you into the strategy on how you can now trade options contract on these crypto ETFs where you can make way more return than if you were to actually invest in the ETF itself. So let's dive in. So let's go back to the chart, right? So if you're looking at the chart, you will see that we were wanting for Bitcoin to drop into this point of interest, and you can see we went, tested the high. We were kind of like going up and down, consolidating within that trading range. But eventually we dropped down into my point of interest. So if you see, boom, we're in that point of interest where I wanted Bitcoin to actually reverse and start to go up. So I was looking for this manipulation to happen. This manipulation is what I was looking for. And when that manipulation happened, I knew this was a good time for me to enter my Bitcoin ETFs. And as you can see, we actually came back to the high. Now, I'm going to walk you through how you could have traded stop options on this run, right? So from April 7th up until May 19th, the total move on Bitcoin itself was about a $30,000 move. So you could have gotten into Bitcoin at 74,000, technically 75,000, and you could have taken this to all the way to 111,000. So for you to have made the 36,000, you'd have had to put in 75 grand. So if you don't have 75 grand, and you really want to make really good money on this, I'm going to walk you through how to do it. But the key thing you want to pay attention to is you actually just want to pay attention to the percent return. So you can see on this particular move, the percent return is 48%. Now, pay attention to the percent return you'd have gotten had you traded the ETF options as opposed to actually trading crypto itself. So for this example, I'm going to use IBIT as the ETF that I'm going to be trading the options contract on. So we're going to dive into my Charlie Schwab Thinkorswim platform and take a look at the options contract, take the trade, and you'll be able to see the return you get. As you can see right now, I am in IBIT. That's the asset I am going to trade. It was going for $43, the actual ETF itself. But remember, we're looking to buy options contract. So I'm going to go for options contracts that expire, let's do June 20th, right? Just for illustrative purposes. So obviously the price right now is at 43. So I'm just going to go to the nearest amount. So I'm going to go with the ones that are going for, what you call it, for $45. Now, this options contract is only $400. That's pretty crazy, right? Now, remember, one Bitcoin at this point in time is $75,000. So let's say I only have 2,000 that I want to play. And that $2,000 would be a fraction of a Bitcoin, right? So in this particular case, it would mean that I'll be able to buy about 5 shares on my ETF. So I'm just going to buy this at market. In fact, let's just make it 10 shares so that it's quite easy. So it's about $4,000. I'm going to just order this at market. And in fact, I'm just going to move the time to 9:30 at market open, because this is when I'll be able to trade it. And then I'm just going to put in my order. So got filled at $405 per share with 72 days on these options contract. So if we're now to fast forward to May 22nd at market open. So we've had the options contracts for about a month, right? Slightly over a month, because that's kind of like that bullish one, right? So remember, my investment was $4,000. So if we do a rough calculation to figure out how much would $4,000 been in terms of Bitcoin, this is what you'd get. So if you had spent $4,000 purchasing Bitcoin, you'd have been able to get this amount of Bitcoin. And had you taken that 50% move to the upside, you would have made a total of $2,000 in profit, give or take, on your Bitcoin position. But now, if you take a look into this particular play, take a look at the results. Had you invested that $4,000, your contracts would now be $1,800 in profit. You'd have generated 300% in return and essentially made $14,000 in profit off a $4,000 investment. That's pretty crazy, right? Now, in order for you to make 363% return on Bitcoin based on the price that we bought it at right here, like based on where price was sitting when we bought it, a 363% return would mean that the price of Bitcoin needs to be way above 200,000, right? So it's pretty crazy. So I think what you need to pay attention to as an investor is really look into how you can leverage options trading, even with crypto assets, right? For your leverage. Like people have been trading options contracts on stocks. So if you can do it on the stock market and the ETFs are there for you to be able to do it on crypto, maybe something you might want to consider, because based on this example, you can clearly see that with a small amount of investment, you can leverage the options contracts that come with tremendous leverage for you to be able to make tremendous return. And what you can now do is you can now take this $14,000 in profit and actually use that to then go buy a much sizable amount of your crypto if that's what you so decide. So anyway, I hope that this video was helpful, because what I just wanted to illustrate is that although there's a lot of hype in crypto, with Bitcoin itself, for you to be able to generate 300% return, it's going to be a little bit difficult. It's going to need a lot of push in order for the price to go all the way up there. However, if you were to trade Bitcoin ETFs, specifically the options contracts for Bitcoin ETFs, you stand a chance to be able to generate this type of return. So if you're interested in learning more about these and other strategies, feel free to follow and like the channel. And also make sure you download the Bitcoin ETF PDF that's below. A whole ton of information that you can get from that resource. So I hope you like this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.